Hello and welcome to the Soul Wisdom Exchange. I'm Regina Curtis. I am the creator of At Matry, and I'm also a Soul Wisdom mentor, an art channel, and so much more. I feel like I could always list off so many things.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's start there. So I love the topic of soul wisdom. I really love the lived experience of it and really having conversations about soul wisdom and having those exchanges with other people. So this is why I created the Soul Wisdom Exchange. Soul wisdom to me is our authentic ways of knowing or how we receive information and of being and how we express that information. So I invite other soul wisdom travelers to come into this space and exchange our wisdom together. Today, I have a special guest, Jemira Payne. And Jemira is a really special guest because we have worked together in many ways. And Jemira works with me actually in the Soul Wisdom mentoring that I do. We actually met each other at a summit. I think you came to the Soul Wisdom Exchange Summit.
Yeah.
Met each other. And now we're collaborating in different ways as well. So I'm so excited to invite you here today, Jemira. Why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself?
Hello. I'm very excited to be here. This is my first podcast ever. So
yay, welcome.
Congrats. Thank you. I'm Jemira. I'm a biracially Black cisgender woman located in Portland, Oregon. Like Regina, I could go on forever. I'm an intuitive guide. I've been calling myself an intuitive cheerleader lately. I tend to really help.
That's good.
Yeah, cheer people on as they go through their own spiritual journey. But I help, I'm an intuitive guide, intuitive tarot reader, reformed perfectionist. I really claim that label. A lot of people I attract tend to be perfectionists too. And I offer one-on-one intuitive coaching to help other leaders, spiritually led and soul-led leaders really embrace their emotions so they can start changing the world. Because that's what I'm all about. Let's change this.
Wonderful. I love it. Yeah, we're changing it. We're changing it together. And I love that term, spiritual cheerleader. Is that how you say spiritual cheerleader? Yeah, I love that. So Jemira, tell us a little bit about your ways of knowing or being, or both.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's really interesting. I've always been intuitively led. I've always been taught, follow your gut. But it wasn't really until I was, closer to I'm 30, going to be 31. It wasn't until I really went through my Saturn return at 28, 29 that I was like, oh, this is what it really means to follow your gut.
Yes.
Because for me, I actually don't so much get a gut feeling. I'm very much a visual person. I very much visualize things in my head. And I also hear things very much clairaudience. So the two ways that I really know are through tarot and through dream interpretation, which is actually why I joined and started working with Regina to help kind of hone in on that dream interpretation aspect of my knowing.
And how is that evolving for you?
Yeah, it's really cool. Being a perfectionist and being a high achiever, and also Virgo rising, so very much perfectionist and a structure.
It must make sense.
Yes, is that I wanted to have a dream every single night, and then I wanted them to be big and prophetic, and then have all these really, really long journal entries and all these insights. And through this, I really learned that that's not how it works. That is not how your intuition works. That's how your ego works. It really wants it every day.
Yes.
And it's really taught me to be more patient and to accept the dreams as they come, and that I'm not going to get the meaning right away. It might be a couple days before I'm oh, that's what that dream meant. So this has really helped me slow down, because I very much want to get to the end.
Yeah, that's, that really is, that's so great to hear as well, because honestly, that has been a large part of my own journey as well. I've had prophetic dreams since as long as I can remember. I remember having these dreams when I was a little kid, and a lot of times they actually showed up in the form of nightmares at that point.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, the first dream I ever remember having, I was I was little, I still lived in Waterloo, Iowa, and I think we moved when I was like 4. And the first dream I remember ever having was a nightmare. And ever since then, I like remember dreams. And when I was younger, yeah, they were more nightmares, but now not so much.
Yeah, it's interesting because, yeah, I've had a relationship with dreams for, like I said, as long as I can remember. I remember also the first time I ever had a lucid dream. So a lucid dream, for those who may not know, is when you are aware that you're in the dream, but you're still in that dream state. And I remember it very vividly. And I remember exactly how I got myself out of the dream because it was a nightmare. And I was at my great-grandparents' house. I was outside and I was being chased by a bear. And I couldn't get, like, they had this, like, kind of what, as a little kid, felt like this really long hallway. I bet it really.
Yeah. It's probably a normal hallway.
Probably like a couple of yards long. Like, it's probably not really that long, but it was outside from the driveway into like the entryway into the house. And in the Northeast, we would call that a mud room. But so it entered into this like mud room. Mm-hmm. And but it was like covered hallway that was just outside. And I think it was just really like because it snowed a lot there too. Yeah. And it was just like a covered walkway. But I was like running to get to that walkway, and this bear was chasing me, and there were 2 doors into this little hallway thing, and I was like trying to get into one of them, and the bear was chasing me. And I remember consciously thinking, I was probably about 6 years old maybe when I had this dream. I remember consciously thinking in the dream, Regina, you're in a dream. If you scream, you can wake yourself up and then you can get away from the bear.
That is
and I was like, just scream. Okay. And I was like having this conscious conversation with myself in my head. Yeah. And so I remember I was like, well, okay, how do I do that? How do I make myself scream in a dream? And I was just like, just do it. And I remember being like, wow, like opening my mouth and just like letting a scream come out. And I woke up screaming.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's really interesting. Oddly enough, I don't think I have many lucid dreams. I have once had a dream though where actually I've had a couple. One, I was being chased by a bunch of aliens and we had to go into a cubby. And I remember being in the cubby with my like alien gun thinking I'm in a dream, and I did wake up. And the other time was I was thinking about someone like before I went to bed. Then they showed up in my dream. I had a full-on conversation. I remember grabbing their hands and saying, I'm in a dream right now. And then I instantly woke up. Those are like the 2 clear times I remember like consciously being like, I'm in a dream, and then waking up. But brains are so interesting. I just think dreams are just so interesting. And like, I mean, it's so fun. Like, I think they're interesting, but I also think they're really fun. Just like how I can be chasing an alien with like a big alien gun. It's like one day, and the next day I'm hugging my grandpa in front of an apartment. Like, it's just so interesting. Like all these different things that go on when you dream.
It's so multidimensional. And yeah, it's fascinating because, well, lucid dreams, I think, are one thing because you have that awareness that you're in the dream. So it's almost like you're, like I said, you were having that kind of conversation. And even the way that you said it too, you're like, I'm in a dream right now. Like you either say that to a person or in some way you're expressing that, like, you know that you're in the dream. But then there are prophetic dreams, and prophetic dreams are interesting as well because a lot of times you don't really know what is prophetic about them. If it's like symbolic, if it's like real, like if it's an actual situation that you're seeing, or the timeline in which that thing is going to happen. And so I think there's kind of multiple, if we really wanted to dig into it, and you and I probably could do that.
We probably could
talk about it forever. Yeah. But there are probably these, like, I would say there are multiple categories of that. And prophetic, there are these dreams that are very much visionary, but they may not be necessarily future telling, right? They may be more about explaining something to you or uncovering some emotion or feeling that you really are experiencing, even though you're not doing it in your conscious mind, right? It's something that you're experiencing otherwise. So to me, and I'd love to hear how this shows up for you, when I can identify those dreams, I notice that they are very vivid, and I mean that in like they're very vivid in color, almost like some kind of like technicolor or something like that. I don't even really truly know what that means, but they're much more vivid in color, and they almost have this like visceral feeling to them. It's like I can feel myself in them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like what? How does it feel for you?
The color for me, not so much. All my dreams are dull. It's kind of weird. Even like the dream that I talked about where I hugged my grandpa who had passed in front of an apartment. Like I remember it being at night and there were street lights, but it still was like a dull kind of thing. But the feeling like you're really there, that part, like it definitely. And it to me, since I'm so auditory, it sounds like I'm really there. It's kind of interesting. And I wanted to go back. I also agree. Like, I think a lot of times and I know I do this all the time, when we have prophetic dreams, we want them to be future telling. And I think dreams are really a self-reflection tool. Like they really are just like your brain and like you processing what's going on in your life. And that's something that I find myself sometimes too, of like, I have this really interesting dream. It sticks with me. I want it to tell the future, but really it's just, I'm stressed out about something and I need to re-examine it.
Yeah. Yes. Or sometimes it actually is telling you about the past, but you don't even realize that it is because, I don't, my brain's going in all sorts of ways right now, but like sometimes it's actually explaining something that's happened in your past. Sometimes it's a reflection of something that's happening in the future. And other times it's like this thing that constantly unfolds over time. And so in a way it is future telling, but you don't realize it was future telling until you get to that point. And then it actually feels like it's explaining something from the past.
Yeah. No.
A future projection of something that you won't know until much later on in life.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know it's to anyone watching if that makes sense, but it makes sense to me. And another thing with prophetic dreams for me is aside from the fact that they feel real and they sound real, is like there's always something wildly random about it that like I remember. I have like one that I had last week that is still sticking with me that I have not I'm like, why? Is I was sleeping on the couch because my partner Ben was snoring and I could not go to sleep. So I went out onto the couch to sleep, and I had a dream that someone came through the front door and they had a bandage on their ear and they were dressed up like kind of like a mail carrier, and they were standing in my front door. And it still stuck with me. I don't know. I still am like, I looked up like ears and like reputation. I had that ear infection. And so I was kind of trying to like figure that out for a while. But yeah, usually prophetic dreams, it's like something so weird that just sticks with me for months or weeks or days. So
do you want to dig into it a little bit?
Sure, let's go.
Let's do it. Let's have fun. So when you said that there was a bandage on the ear and this person also was a mail carrier, right? They were standing in your door. The thing that keeps coming through really strongly is they're a message. They're carrying a message for you.
Yes, right? And that makes a lot of sense, because so what had happened is I had heard someone whisper through the door, "I'm coming in," and I said no. And then I looked at our front window, and our front window you could see our like the porch or whatever, and there were 2 Christmas packages in front of it, and then a big blue bin that said USPS. And then they whispered, "I'm going to come in." And I was like, "No." And then they came in with it. So I do feel like I am getting some type of packages, some kind of gift from this thing. And I do, some messenger. But the bandage on the ear is what really, it was like a white, those finger bandages where they like can wrap the 4. It was one of those, and it was white, and it was on his ear. That's the part that's really like.
So, okay. So definitely the message part, right, is coming through.
I completely agree, yeah.
There is a gift that's coming in with a messenger that you don't want to come in, right? And so in some way, it feels like there's like there's a barrier that you're trying to keep shut, and this is like, nope, coming in. I'm coming in.
Yeah.
And so the bandage on the ear feels like you're trying to block it. Like, I don't know if it maybe is that your clairaudience is actually expanding, and you're actually, have you received any messages clairaudient recently where you're like, that's a little too much? Like, is it pushing a boundary in some way?
Oh my gosh, off the top of my head, I can't think. I'm sure once we hang up, I'll be like, oh,
that's
that
okay.
thing. Yeah,
so
off the top of my head, no.
Think about it now. But the things that are kind of coming to mind are the idea of channeling, or the idea of receiving a message from maybe like the other side, right? The other side of the door, maybe a past loved one or a past friend. That it feels like maybe there's a little bit of something there that is kind of like, okay, that's a little too much for me right now. So I'm gonna just like not listen.
Ooh, that's really interesting. I was talking the other day with someone about spiritual contracts. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but like writing like, hey, I don't want to see ghosts, or like, and that is in mine, is I don't want to see ghosts. And sometimes I am like, I can feel that of like, I feel like I'm probably destined to see a ghost even though I don't want to. So I think that could be.
So when I first started to kind of open that part of my abilities, I was terribly frightened of it. Yeah. And it's interesting that this is coming up now, because that actually is something that I first allowed in only through dreams. And so I set a very conscious barrier to say, I'm not okay with seeing a ghost or seeing a spirit or seeing another being of any kind, which is fascinating because I see so much, but I see it internally in my mind's eye. And that is safe, right? To me, that's completely okay. But I didn't understand the difference between those things, right? Like when I first was kind of coming into this space, like I said, I was terribly frightened of it. Even like, I have a chapter in a book that's going to be launched on December 10th, and it's called Mystics Revealed. And my chapter in that book is actually about these experiences that I had with people that I would call strangers. So it's like all about how I learned about myself and learned about my gifts through interactions with strangers. And I talk about this very thing in that chapter, which is why I'm bringing it up, because I was so frightened to experience my grandmother, who was someone that I really cared about, but I was so afraid of what that would be. And maybe she was disappointed in me for things that I had done in my childhood. Or just the thought of like having any spirit show up, any ghost, show up in my physical world. I was like, no. And so I blocked it. But then I had this encounter with, I was teaching at a preschool, and I had this encounter with a child's grandmother came to pick her up one day. Never met her before. And she like came and delivered this random message to me. And I was like, okay, this is a call for my grandmother, like to connect with my grandmother. And, it just like unfolded. But the reason I'm talking about this is because I set that conscious boundary, and I was like, you know what? This is making me uncomfortable. I felt it trying to push through, right? I felt this like showing up really strongly, like the mail carrier that's like, I'm coming in. Like, no, thank you. It's like, but I've got these gifts for you. And at that time, I would not have considered those to be gifts. I considered them to be packages of frightening things that could just like, who knew what was in there. And so what I'm feeling is like, these are things that you don't really see as gifts right now. And so you're keeping that door shut.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. That is really interesting. I would say I never really thought about like dreams as being a way you could, because I always just think of dreams as like, as like a symbolic self-reflective tools. I never, I guess, really think of dreams as like connecting with people. But I mean, to me, that completely makes sense.
There's a package here.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
It's so funny. The mailman is actually at my door.
That is so fun. Well, hopefully they don't whisper that they're coming.
They are not going to stop buzzing the door. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and start your reading. And I'm going to go get the door. Are you there?
Okay.
Okay. Hold
Yes,
on.
I'm here.
You start your reading.
Okay.
I will be right back.
Okay. So the reading that I'm going to do is actually off the topic of what we were talking about. We were talking about dreams and dream interpretation, and Regina had recently written a blog post about bringing joyfulness into your life, and I'm all about having fun. I have a lot of fifth house energy, if you're an astrology nerd, and so I thought I would do a reading about having fun and how to accept more joy into your life. And so normally I would have it set up to where you could see the cards, and I pulled some crystals, which I can go over, but right now I'll just hold up the cards. So I'll go through the crystals first that I pulled for us. So the first I pulled is some jade for harmony, for gentleness, and to open up your heart chakra. The next is aquamarine to open up your throat, because your heart and your throat are very connected. You can't speak the truth until you're connected to your own heart. It also brings emotional clarity. I have a couple little sticks of selenite. They used to be one, and then I dropped them at the airport. Now they're two. So those are just here for some wisdom, and then amethyst for intuition. So I put those for us, and I just intuitively, speaking of intuition, I pull them out of this bag randomly, and what I get is what I get.
Beautiful.
So the first card that I'm pulling will represent how we all can accept a little bit more joy into our lives. I was telling anyone watching while you were gone, that you recently wrote a blog post about joy. And so, although kind of off the topic of dream interpretation. Okay, so I usually shuffle until a card comes out, which I saw quite a few come out. Oh,
lots of joy.
I know, lots of, well, and it's funny because one of the cards that popped out was Three of Cups, which Three of Cups to me is the celebration card. It is the joy card. So I think that's interesting that it fell out while we were talking about this. Cups in the tarot represent your emotions. So it's, how can you accept more joy in your life? By sharing it with other people, by finding someone you trust in your life, or someone you, even if it's your dog, even if it's yourself in the mirror, that heart chakra, throat chakra, say it out loud, say it to someone, share it with people. Even if you make like a, some people on Instagram have like a close friend story, post it on there, post it with people you trust, really share that. Because once you share joy, our brains are primed to look for the negative. That is what keeps us alive. So you have to actively reach out and share joy with other people. And the more you share it, the more it like sticks in your brain. And the more you're able to see it.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
When you speak something, when you share it, whether you're sharing it physically or sharing it verbally, that is manifesting it, right? Like that is actually bringing it into your body. It's embodying it, right? Mm-hmm. Something's happening emotionally, spiritually, visually, whatever. You embody it and then you express it. And that is sharing that joy, but it's also transforming it into a physical form. And then that way you're allowing it to keep spreading, to keep manifesting in that physical form, because you've already moved it into that form.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And also I think really paying attention to what thoughts you're having while you're sharing the joy. Like, oh, I'm so awesome, I'm great, this was such a great accomplishment. Like those feelings and thoughts, even when you don't have someone to share, you can come back to those thoughts. You can recreate that joy for yourself in any situation. I think that's also a really good thing to remember. It's funny because the next card in this spread that I'm using is what obstacles prevent me from my happiness. And the card that popped out was the Hermit. And we were just talking about sharing. That's what brings you joy. And the next card that popped out was the Hermit. What obstacles are preventing? Keeping it to yourself, staying in that hermit mode, which we all go through phases of hermit mode. Hermit mode can be very beneficial to us to do some really deep self-reflection, but sometimes it's very easy to get to stay in the cave and never want to come out. So how are you staying in the cave, and how are you never coming out? The Hermit also talks about climbing this really big mountain. You're at the peak and you're looking back at everything you've accomplished, and you're looking forward down the hill as to like where you're going to the next city or next town or whatever. So not only what obstacles are preventing you by like staying in a tournament mode and not sharing, but also I keep hearing like looking at the side of the mountain you came up, like staying with the obstacles. You know what I mean? Like focusing only on all the obstacles you've had and not all the awesome things you've done to get over those obstacles.
I love it. Can I add to that too?
Totally. Yeah. Add away.
When you were saying that, I was picturing, you know, like at the kind of talk, it's at the top of this obstacle. It's like you're at the peak at that point, which gives you the opportunity to have a sneak peek of what's coming, but also to really look back and see how far you've come. So it gives you a unique perspective. And the other thing that was coming through when you said that is, so celebration came before that, right? And what's holding you back, or what's that obstacle? But you hear people say all the time, like, I want to scream it from the mountaintop. I want to just shout, right? And it's, to me, that's that energy of like wanting to celebrate and feeling like you want to go up to the top and just scream it and celebrate, but feeling like you're alone in that. So go shout it from the mountaintop.
Yes. And that's what I was about to, it's so funny you were about to mention alone, because that's why I said sometimes even saying it in front of the mirror, like I have a mirror right here, I'm looking at it, like our brains are so funny, and it's like a weird connection. It's someone else saying it to you, it's someone else sharing those emotions with you. So yeah, if you are in a place where you just don't feel like you can share that type of joy, truly just share it with yourself in some way. Share it with I talk to my dog all the time. My dog knows. My dog's like not a therapist. He's a therapist that doesn't talk and he doesn't get paid. So.
Oh, but he does. I'm sure he does. Lots of love and treats.
Yes.
And he absolutely talks to you, just maybe not verbally. So.
No. 1000%. I love I watch a lot of like animated things, and a lot of the main characters always have like an animal familiar, like they always have an animal sidekick, and I definitely think Einstein, who's my dog, is my my sidekick for sure.
I love it. So Angela says, if you don't shout it, people won't hear it. Sharing attracts like-minded people.
Yes, for sure. Ooh, interesting. So how can I overcome these obstacles to happiness? 2 cards popped out for us. So we have the 2 of Pentacles reversed and another sharing card, the 6 of Cups. I keep going the wrong direction. 6 of Cups. Whoop, wrong card. Interesting. How can I overcome these obstacles to happiness? Again, sharing is not staying. And it's so funny because we are sliding into winter, and it is such a isolating, reflective, cold time. But it's, how can you overcome these obstacles by, I keep going the wrong way, by finding the brightness, and also like, these 2 people in this card are children. I keep hearing like childlike wonder, like have fun with it and don't be so serious. When we become adults, our brains just all of a sudden think we have to have everything together and be super serious and can't have fun. And even like the smallest things you did, like, can amaze yourself. Like I've gone on a walk in the morning with Einstein twice. Like that's a huge celebratory thing for me. So if you think about children, the tiniest things to them are so amazing and so cool. So how can you overcome? Like, look at it with a childlike mind. Find those little fun, random things that really excite you. And then I also have another card. If you want to add something, you can, or I can.
No, I was just thinking, because that 2 of Pentacles is reversed, and that other one came up after it, right? So I feel like that's kind of like the helper card for this one. So I'm curious what the 2 of Pentacles is going to be.
So the 2 of Pentacles upright is all about balance. And in this card, actually, not so much the Pentacles, which represent like stability, money. I always just think of stability. Anything that makes you stable is kind of like balancing out. What's actually sticking out is the water in the back, the like waviness of the water. And water in the tarot represents your emotions. So it's like, with it being in reverse, it's like, I keep hearing like, don't take your emotions so seriously, and the fact that like your brain is going to tell you you're worse at things than you really are. Because again, it's pride. To me, it's kind of like by sharing and looking at the childlike things, you can not these are backwards. You cannot take yourself so seriously. At least that's what I'm hearing, is like these big choppy waves can be scary to some people, but really fun to others. So it's really like finding a different person in your brain. But I'm interested what pops out for you.
Well, as you turn that one upside down and you mentioned the waves and then turned it upside down, what I got is like feeling like you're underwater, right? Feeling like you're drowning. And so can you be balanced when you feel like you're drowning? Probably not. But when you are playful in the water, which playful in your emotions as well, you're more buoyant, right? And you float and you can have that childlike, playful kind of experience. So bringing in that playfulness can help you keep your balance when you feel like you're drowning.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. And honestly, playfulness, I'm not going to lie, this man's hat is wild to me.
It is wild.
It's a very playful hat.
Very tall.
I know, very tall. I'm very curious what was going through Pamela's mind when she illustrated those cards. That's what I love about tarot, is that like you can find these silly little things and like different cards and different decks, and it's funny. I have quite a few decks behind me. Like if I pull out the Two of Pentacles in each of them, it's just so fun. Like all the little different messages you can get from them. I kind of like the Rider-Waite because it's traditional. I feel like it's, when people think of tarot, that's what they think of, and it's easier sometimes to sorry, I picked a card up and I looked at it and now my brain's like, ugh. Okay. So the next, and I'm so sorry, I do not remember my squirrel brain has forgotten the finish of that sentence. But
that's okay. I think it's fine. Keep going.
The next card is, why am I worthy of cultivating happiness? And it's really interesting. The three of swords popped out. So Three of Swords upright, heartbreak. I think you can clearly see from that card, or from the image on the card. And with it being reversed, I just keep hearing worthy of love. Like you're worthy of cultivating happiness because you are a being of love, and that is like what that is what the universe wants for you. I don't know. That's what I just keep hearing, like worthy of love. Like you are worthy of happiness and love because you are just a being in this universe. Especially like the Nine of Cups was underneath the deck. I flipped it over, and I would think of it's a confidence card, and it is like you're worthy because you have all of these things going on for you. Like it's, not rainy and heartbreak and like all these bad things that come with the human experience. Sometimes it's like you have so much going on for you. Like the universe has got your back. Like you're so worthy of this. I don't know. I'd like to hear what you see.
Well, I'm curious. Can you say what swords represent?
Yeah. So swords in the tarot represent your communication style. They represent your thoughts, your ideas. Not so much as wands represent your ideas and passions, but swords can also represent your thoughts, your ideas, and how you communicate with people.
And the 9 you said is the what did you call that card?
The 9 of Cups. Oh, I like to think of it as a confidence card. If you look at this person, they just, to me, seem so assured of the cups that are behind them. So they're like assured of their cups represent your emotions. So like they're really, confident, self-love. They're not doubtful of themselves, kind of thing.
Beautiful. So here's what I get from this. If you turn the hearts upside down, or I
don't think backwards then in real life.
That's okay. I mean, both of them too. I know the camera on StreamYard is just funky. So that card with the hearts with the swords in it, it's like those. It's like holding you down. But when you flip it up, that is actually your passion is allowed to come out, right? It's like the wands. Tell me again what they represented.
The sword. Well, wands represent your passion and fire, but swords represent like your thoughts, emotions, and communication.
Okay, sorry, I lost it.
You're fine. You're fine.
So your thoughts and communication, right? Your style of communication. When they're stabbing into your heart, it's like when you're taking something personally, it can really like those thoughts, even your inner thoughts, can stab you in the heart. It can feel like it's holding you down, right? But if you allow those to move through you and keep going, like instead of the swords kind of like holding you down, if you allow them to hold you up and you allow them to keep going and moving through you and out of you, then you get confidence, right? Because you don't have to stay stuck in that, whatever that version of it was. You can be open. It's like these swords are actually opening you up to the confidence because you're just allowing it to move through you and keep up.
And I love that you said about allowing it to move through you, because if we go back to the how can you overcome those waves, you can't fight the waves. You have to just go with the flow of water. And also, for me personally, the easiest way for me to get out of self-critical thoughts is by being curious about the self-critical thoughts.
Yes.
Like, why am I thinking this? Like, why do I think I suck? Or that's like my base thought. My brain's always like, you suck. Like, why do I think that? Am I feeling insecure right now? Why am I feeling like, if you get curious, that childlike wonder, it will really help open up your heart to see why you are worthy of this. And I don't know. I love that you said the holding.
I love this story, right? Like, because that's the other thing is it's not just this one thing that's coming. It's this story that's unfolding. And just like we were talking about with dreams, right? It brings it back. And when you pull that card or when you have a dream in the first place, it tells you one thing. And then you have the next experience and that tells you another thing, but it also helps you reflect on the thing before and it informs the thing that comes next, right? So it's this constantly evolving story that keeps evolving, right?
Yes. And that's why I love tarot. I used to do in high school, like spontaneous speaking and improv, like competition speech. And that's why I love tarot, because it honestly just reminds me of improv. Like, it really is just like intuitive improv. And because there is no right or wrong, and everyone looks at all these cards so differently. And I just think it's so fun to dive into your brain in a new way. Because sometimes when we do like journal or, you know, whatever other reflective method you have, it's easy to take yourself too seriously. It's easy to make it very regimented and whatever. And even with tarot, especially like if you're just, I think a lot of people when they first start reading is like they just want the exact definition of the card. And you know,
it's like look it up in the book and see what it says, and is it this way or is it that way?
And it becomes really regimented. So I always like to remind people, like, this is just intuitive improv. Like, just have fun with it. I think that's such a great
absolutely. I mean, I don't know much about the system of tarot. I know a little bit. A friend of mine kind of walked me through at one point, like, this is what each of these, like the major arcana, this is what it all means. And I took notes on it and I was like, okay, thanks. But really, like, to me, I do really appreciate that, you know, and that helps inform it. But for me, like, my way of knowing is really in the artwork. Like, what's more important to me is the artwork and also that intuitive, just kind of like gut feeling. So I can see the story unfold because that's the thing that really is strong for me in like my way of knowing and expressing. But for other people, that doesn't mean it's wrong to want to look in the book, right? Because that's a way that you're learning about it and a way you're learning about your own intuition.
Yes. No, I 1000%. I don't like, if you really do buy the book and that is how it works for your brain, that is 1000% okay. I started out my tarot journey very much by the book. That's probably why I know so much about like the symbols and the cards and stuff. But it wasn't until I, read the pictures. Yes, exactly. You listen to your intuition. I agree. For me personally, it's more fun to just look at the picture and come up with something as opposed to just the book says pentacles mean money and then this blah blah blah. So but I mean, if you are someone who loves reading the cards, like, buy the book, this is going on YouTube or Facebook, wherever, comment. I would love to talk to you because I'm just so curious, like, what your methodology behind that is. But the last card, what sources can bring me happiness? So the 5, and this is interesting, if we go by the book, the 5 of Wands is actually like a fighting card. It's 5 is a chaos number. Even if you think about the way a 5 is made, it's like chaotic. And
going this way, going that way.
Yeah, it's like weird. There's straight and there's round. But and wands represent wands represent your passion. So if you've read this by the book, you might think, oh, fighting with other people about your passions. But because this is what sources can bring me happiness, I'm actually thinking, again, sharing. Finding people who want to, I mean, yeah, maybe they're fighting. To me, this is kind of like fun experimentation play. Yeah. So what sources, like surrounding yourself with people who inspire you to play, inspire you to be curious, and be out and bold with those things that you're passionate about. Because these are big old wands, you know, it's not like they're little tiny things they're trying to hide. Like they're big and they're proud with it. And I know for myself personally, like, it wasn't until I started like reaching out to people who did share a lot of the same like spiritual ideas that I did, or, you know, thought mindset work ideas, that it was easier to find joy. It was easier to find happiness because I was more open to wanting to share with other people. So really surrounding yourself with people who inspire you to have fun.
Absolutely. And you know what's funny, what's coming up for me, so Angela says, I love that 5 is chaotic. Makes so much sense too, since 5 often can represent being adaptable. Yeah, it actually represents change, right? Like so the number 555 shows up for me a lot, but not all the time. It shows up in very specific times when like things are changing, like when a change is coming. So yeah, that makes total sense. So this card, you know what this reminds me of is LARPing. For some reason.
Oh my gosh, yes, I thought of LARPing. I always think of LARPing when I look at this card too, and that is really playful.
It is, right? And it's the playful version of fighting. So a lot of times that what happens is, and for those of you who don't know what LARPing is, if you don't, it's live action role playing. Angela says yes. Yeah. It's live action role playing, but really it is often staged in the woods, and it's like kind of this medieval scene, or maybe worlds crashing together, and it's like this big fight, right, of this role playing this kind of battle scene, or this role that you're in, and playing that role, and then going into this kind of like fight. But even, you know, whether it's that, or you look at things like martial arts, when you set up a match, or sports team, whether it's a team sport or an individual, like you're actually engaging in this competition, right? Yeah. But you're doing it for fun. You're not doing it necessarily. I mean, yeah, you want to win the game, or you want to win the match, or whatever. But really, like, without having that other person there, then you would just be doing it by yourself. And so there it is again, sharing of like, what was the theme of this one? The over
how you can bring more joy into your life. It's sharing. I mean, I think that.
Yeah.
So much. But I mean, this card specifically was what sources can bring you happiness.
What
so
sources?
I said share it. Yep. Sharing your passions is what I said. What sources? Yep.
Okay. So yeah. So what sources can bring you happiness? When you bring your passion into a group, and whether you're, the other thing that it kind of looks like is like they're building something, right? Like either building something together or playing in some way, even if it has a sense of competition, if you're bringing your passions into it and someone else is bringing their passions, then what you build is an experience, regardless of whether it's a game, a match, a building, you know, a business, a community, whatever it is. Each time you bring your passion into it, it allows you to create something, whether it's an experience or a physical thing.
Yeah. So, and also we're talking, I mean, we had the childlike wonder card. I mean, same with this, LARPing, I think, is anytime you use your imagination, it's, you know, always associated with children, but it can be very much associated with adults too. But yes, it's like,
I wish it was more associated with adults.
I know. I want to meet the person who made up the rule that once you become an adult, you're serious. I want to meet that person and ask them some questions.
I think was that the blog post that I just wrote recently? Is that where you got this idea?
The joyfulness,
yeah. So I think in there too, I asked that question. I was like, when did we decide to stop being playful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness, so much fun. Since we have several people on here live, is there anything you want to ask Jemira, or you want to talk about dreams or the tarot reading? Go ahead and put it into the comments if there's anything that you'd like to ask or share.
Or tell us what makes you happy. Share with us something that brings you joy.
Yay,
and then you have your share done for the day, and then you don't have to say anything for the rest of the day.
I love it. While we're waiting, if people are typing in, I also wanted to share with you that first of all, never have I had a package show up in the midst of doing a live broadcast before. That would not stop ringing the buzzer. I don't know if you can hear that, but they were like, buzz, buzz, buzz.
Yeah.
Usually they just like give up after one or two and just leave the package on the doorstep. But this black guy was like, I'm coming in, which is so reflective of your dream, right?
Oh my gosh.
And he left 2 packages.
I'm already sweating. I'm like sweating more now.
So I just wanted to say that because it's so interesting to me. Like, the world of energy works in such a cool way. And a lot of times people will be like, oh, there was this synchronicity or there was this coincidence, right? But that to me shows just how powerful when we actually speak something, it can show up in our world. Like, it can happen that fast. And then having that sense of curiosity and wonder to be like, okay, what does that mean? We're talking about a person bringing 2 packages to the door and coming in, even if you don't want them to. And then a guy shows up at my door and comes in, even though I didn't want him to.
Yeah, you're like, just leave the packages. Yeah.
Yes. And it was crazy because he had already come into the building. One of my neighbors had let him in. So he was actually at my door, standing in my door when I got there.
Oh, was he blonde and did he have glasses? Because that's what mine got.
He was not, but I didn't think to look for a bandage on his ear.
Oh my gosh, I would have died if he had the on his ear. Well, I think that's, and I agree. And where discernment comes in, we all individually have that threshold of like, okay, this is just a coincidence versus, ooh, this is something fun. And I always, childlike wonder, through our time working together, and we've done those guided meditations.
Yeah.
I think almost every single time I've said something and you're like, oh, you mean this? And you like, you show it. Remember, I was like, oh, cone flowers. And you were like, these? And you like showed a picture. It's just, or like the time I was like, I don't know, I've been seeing mushrooms lately. And you're like, oh my God, I just bought a mushroom. Like, those
I like had these things on my desk. They were just like right there.
You really were like, what do you mean like this? I just think those things are so fun.
Yeah. So honestly, like, that doesn't need to mean anything more than it is a reflection of, like, to me, that means it's a confirmation. It's a sign from the universe that says, you know what? Things are happening, right? Like, I hear you. And it doesn't have to be anything more than I hear you and we're in this relationship, right? I mean, yesterday I wrote something in my journal in the morning about like asking my guides for help with something. And by the afternoon, it actually happened. Like the thing was just like delivered to me out of nowhere. And I was like, thank you. That was quick. Thank you for being so efficient, right? But because I noticed these things happening at that level of the coincidences and the synchronicities, and I'm playful with it to just be like, hey, I see that. Cool.
Yeah.
Then I'm allowing it to come into my world in this bigger way, right? In this more, when I'm specifically asking for something, then that same kind of magic and wonder and playfulness is there to be like, okay, let's play a game. Let's do this, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. Well,
that's so fun.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. What were you
No,
gonna say?
I was just going to say that's so fun. That's all.
Definitely. All right, my dear. So our time has flown by. And here, we've got one more comment. When I randomly think about someone and boom, they message me right then. Yes, absolutely. I love that. Okay, so Jemira, thank you for being here. That was so much fun. Thanks for letting me play along too. I love to have those different perspectives and be like, okay, let's just have a conversation and let's explore this together, right? It doesn't have to be one thing or another. It can be many things to many people. So Lots of fun. Tell us how we can find you. If people want to follow along or they want to work with you, how can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Jemira Payne. I'm sure it'll be posted somewhere.
Yes, I'll post it all in the comments.
Yeah. Oh, I guess you can see my name right here also.
Yeah.
Jemira Payne. Send me a DM. It's honestly the best way to get a hold of me is to send me a DM and tell me what makes you joyful. Tell me if you love tarot. Tell me how's your day. I don't care. Oh, tell me your cat's name.
Carlos was like, I'm here. I'm joyful.
He's like, I'm ready. But really hit me up on Instagram. You can also email me, Jemira is on my website. You can also follow me on YouTube. I'm relaunching my YouTube channel in 2022. So I'll be doing different tarot readings as well as different grounding practices that you can incorporate into your life. And yeah, that's where you can find me. That's how you can get a hold of me. I'm very excited to chat.
Yay,
oh, and you can work with me. Sorry, I totally forgot. You can also work with me. I mean, we can just talk forever, but you can also work with me. I do one-on-one intuitive guided sessions where we get into things like the tarot, astrology, human design. Ooh, Carlos. Human design, all these different things that help your soul work and I help you access those so you can get over burnout and start changing the world. So.
Nice. Yeah. Wonderful. We will definitely put those links in. I'll put those in the comments, both on YouTube and on Facebook. And actually, since you just mentioned human design, it's a reminder. I have a workshop coming up on November 11th. Yeah, Saturday the 11th at 11 o'clock. And if you're interested in joining that, I actually have a code for half off. It's rewrite. I'll put it in the comments as well. But come play, learn about human design. Jemira, you'll be there, I think, right?
I will definitely be there. I'm a human design nerd. So
excellent.
I'll definitely be there. Come out.
Beautiful. Okay, so lots of ways to connect. I'll be right back here on Monday. So I have another podcast coming up with Nicolette Halliday, and she's actually the publisher of the book that I was talking about, Mystics Revealed, that's coming out on December 10th. So the continuation of today's conversation for sure. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure to subscribe or like so you get notifications when we go live again. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.